Hello guys, my name is Aziz. So today we are going to talk about something that maybe people don't know and don't even realize. So today my friends and I will bring you guys into the cow barn. Just kidding. So today we will bring up to you guys the truth about Cowspiracy. But before we go deeper, let's do some interviews. Do they know or even realize that this issue is happening all around the world? So let's go.
To be honest, I'm not quite sure about that, but I think it is maybe related to environmental issues. So I don't know to talk because it's the first time I have ever heard about that word.
Cowspiracy? I'm not sure. What is it all about? No, I think this is the first time I heard about it.
I think I'm not sure about that, but usually I've heard that the common factor that cause the environmental issues is such as illegal deforestation or something like that. So I'm quite shocked as it is the first time I heard about that. To be honest, I think that it can cause negative effect to our environmental or nature, such as landslide, flood, or even global warming, and many more. So even for myself as a human, this conspiracy also can cause the shorten of our resources such as food.
So we are done with the interviews. So the main objective that we make this video is to give awareness to people and society about how sick this issue is. Shall we go more deeper about Cowspiracy? My friends will show you the truth behind the Cowspiracy.
The major drawback of cattle farming is its association with deforestation. So, how are these two related? Let's take the Amazon forest for example. During the late 1990s and early 2000s, over 10,000 square miles of the forest has been cut down in a year, and these cleared lands were converted directly as grazing land for cattle and also to plant soil for animal feed. It is difficult to pinpoint an exact number of how many trees are cut down each year, but the estimate is between 3.5 to 7 billion. And from these figures, agricultural expansion accounts for nearly 30%. In addition to that, deforestation caused by cattle ranching is responsible for the release of 340 million tons of carbon to the atmosphere every year, which is equivalent to 3.4% of current global emissions. So, here are some facts on why it is a cowspiracy. Each year, around 6.7 million acres of tropical forests are bulldozed or burned for cattle production, which account for over half of deforestation in South America and is more than 5 times as destructive as any other commodity in the region. As I have briefly mentioned before about the soy production, 80% out of 346.02 million metric tons of soy that are produced each year globally is used for animal consumption, and around 60 million acres are exclusively devoted to soy production. This number continues to climb along with the growing demand for meat. Forest fires are natural occurrences, but due to this, some are intentionally set ablaze to clear space for cattle and feed crops, taking vegetation and mostly for cattle. Now, I will move to my next point. Since the forests are cut down to make way for livestock grazing, we shall see why and how this action threatens the environment. First, let's see the definition of livestock grazing. So, grazing is a method of animal husbandry where domestic livestock are allowed to consume wild vegetation outdoors in order to convert grass and other forages into meat, milk, wool, and other animal products, often on land unsuitable for arable farming. Grazing by livestock is a means of deriving food and income from lands which are generally unsuitable for arable farming. For example, in the United States, some 85% of land is not suitable for crops. So, how does this activity impact the environment? The impacts are determined by how and where grazing is used. The negative impacts of livestock grazing are often the result of misuse. For example, the ecological impacts of grazing depends on the type of ecosystem, plant community, and condition of a particular site. The response of wildlife to domestic grazing varies by habitat. First, after decades of livestock grazing, the once lush streams and riparian forests will be reduced to flat, dry wasteland, while the once rich topsoil has been turned to dust, causing soil erosion, stream sedimentation, and elimination of some aquatic habitats. According to Center for Biological Diversity, overgrazing of native fire-carrying grasses has stuffed some western forests of fires, making them overly dense and prone to unnaturally severe fires. Next, grazing also causes the removal and or trampling of vegetation that would otherwise be used for food and cover, resulting in increased wind and water erosion. Overgrazing also affects the livestock-wildlife interactions that may result in wildlife displacement or disease transmission. If you wonder how, this is because these natural places and the plants and animals that inhabit them face increasing pressure from human activity, leading to the emergence of new animal-to-human transmitted disease like the COVID-19. In this transfer, also known as zoonosis, occurs when an infection carried by animal, like the bat in the case of COVID-19, is transmissible to a human. Ungulates are the group of large mammals that are distinguished from other animals by the presence of hooves. So, trampling, forming, and yellowing by these ungulates will disturb the soil and in some cases completely destroy the soil crust. In arid and semi-arid ecosystem, loss of microbiotic crust can have detrimental long-term effects. This action causes compaction of soils, which damages plant roots and causes roots to become concentrated near the soil surface, which may prevent plants from acquiring sufficient resources for vigorous growth. In addition, when animals eat the grass and plants on one particular land, they decrease flower and seed production directly by consuming reproductive structures, or indirectly by stressing the plant and reducing energy available to develop seeds. This will lead to the disappearance of palatable species and the subsequent dominance by other less palatable herbaceous plants or bushes. So, from the previous stated points, it is obvious that overgrazing and deforestation has a detrimental effects on the environment.
Did you know that livestock production has significant impacts on the environment, including in its usage of water? For the past 4 decades, livestock water use has increased from 145 cubic kilometer per year in 1971 to 270 cubic kilometer per year in 2012, with an increasing trend of 1.36% per year. Consumption of agricultural products largely determines the global water footprint related to consumption, contributing 92% to the total water footprint. Before we go deeper, you need to know what is water footprint. A water footprint shows the extent of water use in relation to consumption by people. It measures the amount of water used to produce each of the goods and services because everything we use, wear, buy, and it takes water to make. Consumption of the industrial products and domestic water use contribute 5%, while 55% of water consumption is for animal agriculture. Meat and dairy products has especially large water footprints due to the amount of water and intensive feed required to raise the animals. Meat and dairy production accounts for 27% of global freshwater consumption. Milk is made up of approximately 87% of water. Therefore, getting enough water into the cow is very important. Cows consume 4 to 5 pounds of water for every pound of milk they produce. For 60 pounds of milk that is produced, the cow will consume 25 to 30 gallons of water every day. To simplify, to create 1 kilogram of steak, a cow needs to eat up to 25 kilograms of grain and 50,000 liters of water. 1/4 pound of hamburger requires over 660 gallons of water to produce, and 1 pound of beef uses 2,500 gallons of water. Why does it take so much water to feed cows? Well, for one thing, cows eat a lot. During the first 6 months, a calf eats. When it's about 700 pounds, it's sold at auction, usually to a feedlot, which is like a very crowded cow city. At the feedlot, the cow continues to eat. So how do the livestock impact the environment? As mentioned before, livestock requires a large amount of water. Water is diverted from rivers or taken from underground sources to support livestock, either directly for drinking requirements or indirectly for irrigating the fodder production. Growing feed crops for livestock consume 56% of water. Livestock has the second most severe impacts on water as one of the major sources for inland water pollutants. The conventional fodder production increases fertilizers and pesticides in the water system. Nitrogen-based fertilizer is a relatively common input that considerably enhances agricultural yields, but only up to a certain point. Eventually, the return on fertilizer levels off and any excess goes unabsorbed by the soil. This excess fertilizer runoff on farmlands during heavy rains and eventually ends up in the streams and rivers, contaminating them and impacting downstream drinking water supplies. Furthermore, high levels of nitrates, antibiotics, and hormones are produced by manure management. Chemicals from tanneries and other manufacturing processes contribute to the high water footprint of livestock products, leading to severe environmental damage due to water pollution and high withdrawal rates. Water use in agriculture is caught in a policy trap. On one hand, agricultural policies have been effective in responding to increasing demand, but on the other hand, they have resulted in a set of unintended consequences, including over-application of fertilizer and pesticide and depleted groundwater storage.
Animal agriculture is one of the largest contributors to human-made greenhouse gas emissions that contribute to climate change. Cattle are the #1 agricultural sources of greenhouse gas worldwide. Why? According to a United Nations report released in 2006, it was stated that cows produce more greenhouse gas than the transportation sectors. 13% transportation emission compared to 18% for livestock. Moreover, raising the animals for their food consume 1/3 of our world freshwater, 45% of our Earth land use, 91% of our Amazon destroyed, species extinction and habitat destruction. Agriculture industry is one of the most powerful industries in the world, influenced by money and industry on politics. So let's see how cows can contribute to climate change. Livestock, especially ruminants such as cattle, produce methane as part of their normal digestive process. This process is called anaerobic fermentation and it represents over a quarter of the emission from the agricultural sector. The way in which manure from livestock managed also contribute to methane and nitrogen oxide emission. Considering the entire livestock commodity chain, from land use and feed production to livestock farming and waste management, to product processing and transportation, about 18% of the total anthropogenic greenhouse gas emission coming from the livestock sector. Methane emission from livestock are estimated to be approximately 2.2 billion tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalents, accounting for about 80% of agricultural methane and 35% of the total anthropogenic methane emission. Furthermore, the global livestock sector contributes about 75% of the total agricultural nitrogen oxide emission. Methane emission from livestock are estimated to be approximately 2.2 billion tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalents, accounting for about 80% of agricultural methane and 35% of the total anthropogenic methane emission. Furthermore, the global livestock sector contributes about 75% of the agricultural nitrogen oxide emission. Other sources of greenhouse gas emission from livestock and related activities are fossil fuel used for associated farm activities, nitrogen oxide emission from fertilizer use, methane release from the breakdown of fertilizers and from animal manure, and land use changes for feed production. Methane emission from cattle by anaerobic fermentation process, increasing greenhouse gas emission, contributes to global warming and climate change. Methane gas is 28 times more potent than carbon dioxide, even though it has a short lifetime compared to carbon dioxide. Methane is more than 20 times as effective as carbon dioxide at trapping heat in the atmosphere. Digestive system also can emit methane and other potent gases such as nitrogen oxide and carbon dioxide, and it accounts for respectively 37% of all human-induced methane, which is largely produced by the digestive system of ruminants, and 64% of ammonia, which contributes significantly to acid rain. Next, there are two sources of greenhouse gas emission from livestock digestive process. The first one by anaerobic fermentation, where specific microbes residing in the rumen produce methane as a byproduct during digestion, and these microbes decompose and ferment the plant materials eaten by the animals. To release the pressure that can build up as this gas is produced, the animals then burp it out. The more a fiber cows eat, the more methane it produces. Livestock are responsible for burping the methane equivalent of 3.1 gigatons of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere annually. The second source, by anaerobic fermentation of livestock manure producing methane and denitrification of manure producing nitrogen oxide. Methane production appears to be a major issue and largely arises from natural anaerobic ecosystem and fermentative digestion in ruminant animals. Much of the global greenhouse gas emission currently arises from anaerobic fermentation and manure from grazing animals.
So, how can we help in reducing agricultural pollution? One of the ways is by boosting the livestock productivity by better nutrition. Farmers should feed higher grain diets to cattle such as corn, oats, and barley. This can reduce the percentage of energy consumed that is converted to methane to about 3% from the total of 6.5%. Reducing anaerobic methane emissions decreases greenhouse gases in the atmosphere and improves the efficiency of converting plant material into milk and meat. This can also make cattle more sustainable and less gassy. Next is by implementing proper cattle grazing management. This can help mitigate climate change. So, how does this work? Farmers need to rotate between herds, between pastures to give the plants a rest from grazing and the opportunity to recover. For example, if land A is being used and land B are on the grazing side, farmers should alternate between both of them. When land A is used for grazing, let land B rest and recover, and vice versa. Recovery is important to allow water infiltration and healthy root system in the soil. Sustainable grazing practices can help in a long way in combating climate change. Next, farmers can install anaerobic digester or known as dairy digester at their farm. And what is the function of dairy digester? Dairy digester is designed to capture methane. A dairy digester is a technology that can generate biogas from dairy methane. The dairy digester breaks down solid waste in the absence of oxygen, hence why it is called the anaerobic digestion, and it turns it into natural gas. The energy captured from methane digestion can be used to generate fuel and electricity. It is also cost efficient, effective, and it can generate revenue for the farmers. Sources from California Department of Food and Agriculture stated that dairy digesters reduce greenhouse gases by 12.8 million metric tons. That is equivalent to 10 years over carbon dioxide emission, or about 1.3 million metric tons of CO2. But the drawbacks are it is expensive and costly, so this is where the initiative from the government can come through and help farmers in reducing greenhouse gas emissions from the agriculture sector.
Now, we all know the truth behind the agricultural pollution, or as we all know as the Cowspiracy. For sure, the agricultural pollution is one of the biggest contributor to our environmental pollution, and we don't want it to be worsened to our environment. And the facts that given by my friends just now is the truth behind the agricultural pollution. So I hope you guys can be more conscious about this issue, which is Cowspiracy, or also known as agricultural pollution. We always hear the common one, like deforestation, but this Cowspiracy issue is the uncommon one that we rarely heard of. So I hope through our video it can give more awareness and consciousness to our society and also to the policymakers. Let us all protect our environment from continuously being threatened, and may our environment will always prosper and thrive. Thank you. Bye for now.